So again, my name is Matt Rudick. The panel up in front of you consists of Captain Michael Long, who is the Sector Commander for Sector Honolulu, and Lieutenant Commander Nick Jarbo. He's the Waterways Division Chief at the sector. So they're going to take the majority of questions and comments throughout the evening, but we do have representatives here from other agencies. U.S. Geological Service is here, National Park Service, DLNR. They are certainly willing to entertain questions that you have. That said, just to kind of lay out some ground rules, the purpose of this meeting is for the Coast Guard to receive public comments regarding the proposed safety zone at the Kamakuna lava entry site. So, and this is pertaining to the permanent zone that we're looking to establish, not the temporary zone that's currently in place at this time, but to talk about the proposed rule that the Coast Guard is, that we have advertised, and we're looking for public comment to help us in making the best decision that we can, in making sure that we're balancing all the different considerations people have with safety, economics, Hawaiian heritage, all those different important issues, and that we're doing the right thing for everybody involved here.
But I really want to thank you for taking time out of your busy day to come out here and give us, the Coast Guard, the opportunity to listen to your questions and your concerns about this proposed safety zone. I will say that no final decision has been made whether to keep it, modify it, or eliminate it. This is what this hearing is for, is to hear what your questions and your issues are. But before, I just wanted three things really quick. As Commander Rudick said, we are primarily in a listening mode. We want to hear from you. And the second thing is we'll do our best to answer your questions, but I'm going to tell you up front, we probably won't have all the answers, or we won't have answers that fully satisfy you. But we are required, before any rulemaking goes into effect permanently, to address your questions and your comments. So if we can't answer your questions, or we don't have all the answers, the full answers to it, we'll ask you to put that officially in the comments section, and we'll address that in that forum. And then finally, we're here for you. As long as we need to be here to listen to you all, we're here for you. And that's it. Nick?
So what I'd like to do in the next few minutes is just review for us the hazards that we know exist at the ocean entry. And I'll say that this information comes from HVO staff long before me, going back to the late 80s when lava first started going into the ocean in the south part of Kilauea, making observations of the activity down there, documenting the processes and the deposits, writing up some papers for publication in the science literature, and then most recently, in association with this rulemaking process, we've compiled some of our information into a report that we shared with the Coast Guard and was posted on their website for public access. So just to remind everybody what we're talking about and where we're talking about, this is the most recent map of the lava flow from the Pu'ua eruption site up here in the national park, right on the boundary of the park, sending lava flows through a tube system down to the coast here at the south part of the island. And here's the Kamakuna, location of the Kamakuna ocean entry. And for those of you who've been here a good long time, you know this is not the first time lava has been going into the sea at Kamakuna. It's been a popular spot for past lava ocean entries, but indeed this whole southern coastline has been repaved by lava since the late 1980s. And really since the eruption began in 1983, lava's been flowing into sea for about half of the time during that 34 years. So lava ocean entries are a common process and we've had a chance to study, and for now anyway, they're continuing. So now just to march through the key hazards, the key dangerous processes that we know are operative at the coastline. First one, familiar to all of you, is the deterioration of air quality that occurs right as lava is entering the ocean. When 2,000 Fahrenheit molten lava encounters the seawater, there's a chemical and physical process that goes on. The seawater is boiled dry, and this white plume of material that we call laze is created. The laze is a mixture of superheated steam, hydrochloric acid, and tiny particles of volcanic glass. It's a very noxious and dangerous combination, and it's not good to breathe, and that's been well documented by studies that were done, I think in the late 80s when lava first hit the sea by CDC at the request of the county and the park. Just for context, when our people go to the coast to do work, we are always in full protection gear, which includes hard hats, and for the laze problem, we take respirators half-face respirators to filter out both the particles and the acidic gas. So we take that very seriously. But as you know from being down there so often, the plume is easy to see. It's usually quite white and visible. And depending on the wind direction, it's typically coming onshore or longshore. Sometimes I've seen pictures of it going offshore. But it changes through the day as the wind conditions occur. The wind conditions aren't there. A second hazard down there is cliff collapse. And this became really apparent after the big collapse of New Year's Eve, when there was fresh face exposed all along that coastal entry area, behind where the lava delta had collapsed, and then further to the east towards the public viewing area. At least for some time, that cliff was very unstable. And we knew that because we could hear and see rock falls, and when our geologists went down, they could see these cracks propagating behind the actual cliff face. And these cliff collapses occurred with less and less frequency as the cliff became stable. But this is a photograph taken of one right after it occurred, where a big chunk of the cliff, this is about a 30-yard, when we say meters, we'll just translate that to yards for convenience. A 30-yard high cliff here, large chunk of material falling into the ocean, spraying water, and you can see blocks. These are fairly large blocks heading out to sea here, similarly up onto the top of the coast. So cliff collapse is another hazard that we know is operative down there. Whenever you have molten lava going into the sea, you're going to have that explosive interaction of very hot material and the cold seawater, and you produce explosions, not continually, but often. And this is a shot of a kind of tephra jets that can be formed. This one taken in late January, when we had that beautiful fire hose of lava coming into the sea from up near the top of the cliff. A big jet of superheated steam that lays material, and then large chunks of spatter, sometimes molten, sometimes solid, heading out to sea here. We know that the water at the surface there is hot. And here's a really cool aerial image of both the visual from the helicopter and then using a thermal camera of a typical ocean entry situation. And you can see in the thermal image the two plumes, major plumes of hot water emanating away from the entry point here. And these temperatures, as analyzed from the thermal data, can be in excess of 130 degrees Fahrenheit. So pretty hot, hot enough to scald you if you were to touch it or enter it by accident. We've seen these plumes travel offshore, a couple 100, 300 yards, but they clearly are cooling as it mixes with the surrounding ocean water. And we also know from studies done back in, I think, the early 90s of ocean entry that this layer of hot water is really maybe only a couple meters thick, so it's not propagating very deeply into the water column, but it is the surface water. Another problem down there is if a lava delta is building out, you've got surface lava occurring on the delta. If you get some large waves splashing onto the delta, that hot water can sometimes splash on land as well, sending scalding water pretty far inland depending on the topography. And with it will come a cloud of malaise material. Perhaps the greatest concern we've had, and you've heard a lot of discussion about it, is this phenomenon known as delta collapse. This is when large chunks of the new land that's been built out from the sea cliff falls away into the ocean. And I want to walk through why that process occurs. So this is a cartoon that illustrates that, but now let's pick it apart a little bit. So when lava enters the ocean, shown by this red snake here, of course it interacts with the seawater, explosivity, forming fragmental debris that then mantles the submarine slope here with a kind of a tailless ramp of a variety of grain sizes of deposit. And then sometimes the lava will prograde or advance out over that rubble layer, and then you get more rubble on top. So you kind of develop this inverted or slanted layer cake of solid lava and debris that can propagate pretty far offshore and down into the deep. Now this material, as I said, is a variety of different grain sizes. It's not solid. And so through time it will compact and be unstable, and it will adjust and shift around a little bit. But it's prone to instabilities. And so you can develop through growing cracks that cut through the entire pile here. And these cracks are zones of weaknesses that eventually can become planes of failure. So this is showing that when a lava delta grows through days, weeks, and even months, getting larger and larger, further and further out to sea, you're basically developing a very large, unstable mass of a combination of solid rock and fragmental debris. You can have collapses along those planes of weakness all of a sudden without warning. It can be a single plane of weakness, as shown in this cartoon, where a big chunk fails and slides under the ocean, or it can be multiple cracks and multiple planes of weakness that fail in kind of a succession, biting further and further inland. And we saw a great example of that on New Year's Eve during the collapse of the Big Delta, where over a period of many hours, gradually big chunks were sliding into the ocean. And accompanying that process, you suddenly expose hot, molten material back in the delta, so you cause bigger explosions and send debris in all directions. So this is why this process is so dangerous. And then, once the bench collapse or delta collapse has occurred, you might stabilize the situation. If lava continues to flow, it'll continue to flow out over the remains of the collapsed delta, and you'll get a new delta or a new bench forming. And the process can repeat itself again and again. So since 1986, when lava deltas began to form, we've seen dozens of these things come and go. There have probably been many more dozens that we haven't seen come and go because they happen at night. It can happen very quickly. The deltas can vary in size from something the size of this room to 25, 30, 40 acres. They can really vary in size. It's a little hard to see in these lighting conditions. This is a picture of the Pamakuna Delta back in late November 2016. And you can see, parallel to the margin of the delta, all of these cracks. They were really visible from the air, and to us were an obvious sign that this delta was becoming unstable. These planes of weaknesses were developing. It was really only a matter of time before collapse occurred. So these are the kinds of things we look for when we go out there by helicopter every 2 or 3 weeks, do an overflight, check out the entry, look to see if there are signs of collapse and that sort of thing. During the collapse, in addition to the explosions and the blocks that can be ejected in many directions, there can also be surges of water because you suddenly displaced a fair bit of water by all this mass sliding into the sea. This is a frame grab from a video that we received back in 2005 from a very small boat that was, I think at the time, maybe 50, 60 meters offshore, and the surge coming out did a little bit of swamping in the back of the boat. So this is a small boat, it was a small collapse. Only show this to illustrate that there can be harmful surges of water that can impact boats out off the entry point. But the explosions are really the concern we have, the greatest concern we have down there. This is a photograph from the December 31st New Year's Eve delta collapse taken by some visitors down at the Park Service viewing area. It shows this large boiling cloud of ash and blobs and blaze happening where the delta is falling apart and sliding into the sea. Excuse me. When the Coast Guard approached us a couple of months ago and asked for some help in developing their policies, managing the area around the ocean entry, we did a review of all of the ocean entry delta collapses that we were aware of going back to the late 80s. And those were compiled in a written report which was shared with the Coast Guard, and I know it's on the website that they were sharing with folks. It's called Homeport. Anyway, you can probably get that URL from these guys tonight. But the report is there, and it has a description of these hazards, similar to what I've just given you, and then a listing of all of the major delta collapses that we've observed and documented and recorded, and most importantly, studied. And by that I mean after a collapse, we typically send geologists down there to map where the deposits have gone, how far the block field extends inland, what the sizes of blocks are that have been ejected, and that sort of thing. So it was based on that compilation of information where this 300-meter number comes from. Offered that was the same number that we gave to the Park Service. When was that, John, that we set up the rope line? Was that last fall?
That was, yeah, back in October.
Yeah, so after the entry began, the Park Service similarly was looking for some guidance on where to establish their safety rope line. And again, based on this similar review, we came up with a 300-meter as a conservative value. In other words, most of the dangerous block fields that we've observed have not gone as far as 300 meters, but a few have, and a few have gone farther. So that's the origin of that number. And when we talk about blocks, sometimes it's hard to know if people know exactly what we mean, but here's a picture from 2008 showing a large block. This is the backpacker scale that was thrown about 100 meters, 100 yards or so inland from the delta collapse. So this is the kind of projectile that we're concerned about, because certainly if that were to hit a boat, it would do damage. If it were to hit a person, it would probably be fatal. More recently, in late March, as the new lava delta from late March was beginning to form. There were some explosions, and here are examples of the block fields from some of the smaller explosions. Here's a large, dense piece of lava with a globe for sale. This is about 30 or 40 yards inland from the point of entry. And then I'll close with just a couple pictures of the last delta collapse that happened just this Wednesday. This is a photograph of the Kamakuna Delta as it existed on May 3rd in the early morning before the collapse began. This is a picture taken from a time-lapse camera we have out there. And again, the sea cliff here is about 30 yards tall from the sea. And so it looks to be just scaling it off like this lava delta maybe was 100 yards or so propagating out to the sea cliff. So that's the before picture, and that's the after picture. It's there, and then within about 5 minutes or so, it was gone. So that just illustrates how rapid this process can be and how sudden. And as of yet, we have no way of detecting the onset of these collapses with any kind of warning that would be actionable to be able to alert the public or boats at sea. I think that's all I have, and I will stop there. We're going to keep going, and then I'll be available. Matt and I and Jan and I will be available for questions on this presentation when we're done.
And you put how far it was from the entry.
Yeah.
Do you have information on whether that was on land or at sea or anything that relates to that?
Yes, thank you. These are all on land, because that's the only way we can, but we have photographic evidence that these explosions are radial and that they go in all directions. Sometimes they're directional and they're preferential in a certain direction, but there's really no reason to believe that they aren't going out to sea as they are going onto land.
Okay. But even that boat that got swamped, there was no injury associated with that particular explosion?
No injury that I'm aware of, and there were no blocks that reached the boat at that time. Not every collapse produces explosive blocks. That's
Well,
another important thing.
I'm sorry, that was because of the wave. Just one.
That's right. That's right. But I think it's important for me to be sure to say that not every time we have a collapse event are these big block fields produced. But we don't know what explosions will and will not.
Thank you.
Yes.
On the two died, that was because they went into a cave at the ocean, not the ocean entry itself.
The two deaths referred to here were, my understanding is people got too close to the ocean entry and they got enveloped in the hot blaze, steam.
They were spelunkers, and there's a tube right there, and their tracheas were burned, and I was pretty much on scene on that, and that was the going into the cave by the ocean.
Yeah, they went into actual lava too.
I'm
And
sorry,
actual
I don't know, I can't really respond to that,
Okay.
I'm not quite sure. But clearly they weren't on a boat, they weren't on a boat.
Right. But they went into a cave, that's where they got the hot gases.
I thought they were down on the bench close to the entry.
It was a cave at the bench. There was a big cave there at the bench, and the one person was a spelunker. Yes.
Yeah.
They were probably.
I'm sorry, just one second. So if people do have knowledge of certain incidents that have happened in the past, obviously we don't know every incident that's happened, and USGS doesn't know of every incident. But you guys have that local knowledge. You probably have talk story all about it all the time. So please share that. Go onto the Federal Register and document that and share that with us, because that's, you know, that right there, that could be a key piece of information that could help us figure out how to craft this rule. So.
The longest guy that's been doing this, if you want to know, this shade right there. He's been doing it for 10 years, at least. I've been with him 8 years. So if anybody would know what's going on down there, it would be that guy right there.
Does anybody have this data? Because from my knowledge, as much as I'm not there, I've never seen a serious marine incident. I don't know what's happened on the park, but I can tell you from our side, we've never had anything. Now, you know, people have gotten injured in between transit, but what I'm here to find out is the facts of what has happened on the boats, what's changed in the last 11, 12 years I've been commercially operating down there to make this all of a sudden unsafe. And maybe it's just rolling down the pipe, but I think that's what a lot of people are here to find out. And I see that these things have been thrown inland, and I agree. Yeah, there's been projectiles probably in the ocean, but we're not going to go digging for them. But most of the time, trade winds go onshore. So I'm also going to say, a lot of time the rocks are going to fly towards you guys and not out into the ocean as much, because the winds are going to take them that way. So I do appreciate all this data, but it still doesn't speak a lot towards the ocean side.
The thing I'm looking at with the data is I see how many incidents are listed right there. And I can tell you there were probably that many car accidents in this state this weekend. So are we all going to stop driving cars? That's all I really want to know.
You know, why we enacted this temporary safety zone was because the Coast Guard was given information of unsafe practices near the lava flow, illegal charter operations, and other information where we decided to enact this temporary safety zone. But if you have data that as you're saying, please put that in the Federal Register, and that will help us make a decision on what to do, whether we make this temporary safety zone permanent, eliminate it, or modify it.
The chances, I mean, like this gentleman pointed out, we probably had more deaths over the weekend in car accidents. And I understand that blocks can fly, and I mean, we all know the dangers, right? But, I mean, there's so many things on this planet that are dangerous. How many people drowned at pipeline this season? Are we gonna make that illegal? You know, and I mean, I think to make a law like that, it's putting like a one-size-fits-all on something that changes every day. She basically said they only go down there once every 3 weeks. I frequent that area both hiking, I've been on various boats there, and I can tell you it changes from hour to hour. And to make an assessment 3 weeks ago and to tell everybody that is going to cover a law for the rest of the time, I mean, that would be like going to pipeline and saying, hey, you know, you guys can't get more than 300 yards from the peak because once every 50 years we get a black swell that washes out the coast.
Stuff, we want to make sure that gets captured in the rule. So, I mean, the way you put that was perfect. And then, so if you took one of those sheets to how to make a comment, I mean, that's the type of stuff we want to hear to help us make this rule right. And then, so I think what we're going to do is, I'd like to just sort of explain what the rule is, just so everyone in the room understands what the Coast Guard is proposing, and then reopen it up to people. And that's the type of stuff we want to hear. So thank you, Tina. I appreciate that.
Questions to Tina, though?
What's that?
I think some of the questions are based at Tina because she's the professional in this. So to have her walk out of here and not have it heard in front of the people, to me, like
Shane,
one of my...
Shane, she's not leaving. She's staying
But
in the
I
room,
think it's
but
important for...
we want to stay on the agenda. And I do want to give Mr. Jarbo an opportunity to explain the rule, because what he says about the rule may influence how you phrase your question to Tina when it comes to the science behind it. So
Can we have him do that and then bring her back up here? Because I think it's important that she's the one that, you know, has the most of the information. I think everybody wants to hear from her.
yes, absolutely. So when we get to the question and comment portion of the agenda, if there is a question that is pertinent to USGS, then I'm sure Tina will be more than happy to answer it then.
So thanks, Commander Rudick. So again, Nick Jarbo, appreciate you guys all being here. I'll just get right into what the proposed rule is. So on March 28th, Captain Long signed in proposed rule, basically 300 meters around a 300 meter safety zone around the Kamakona lava ocean entry. And the safety zone encompassed all waters, 300 meters. So it's just on the water side. That's what the Coast Guard is enforcing, or is proposing to put into place from where the lava goes into the ocean. The zone, basically it's necessary to protect vessels and people operating in that vicinity. Understand there's a lot of people who've been operating in that area for a long time, and there's also people who, I was watching SportsCenter, and the top play one day was a kayaker with a GoPro going right past the lava ocean entry too. So that, he didn't die. And he didn't die, and so there's a lot of people doing a lot of different things. So the Coast Guard is proposing regulation to keep people 300 meters away from the lava ocean entry. We view public participation as essential to this rulemaking process, and that's why I'm so thankful that you guys are here. I'm thankful for the, right before this meeting, there were 33 comments already on the Federal Register. So I know you guys are encouraging your passengers or people you talk to make comments. That's why we're here. We want to make sure that we get this rule right. And so we need information. We created the rule based on the 300 meter science that Ms. Neal just presented. But that's not the end-all, be-all. So we need your feedback, and that's why we're here tonight. We got someone taking notes. Everything that we talk about, we're going to do a summary, and that's going to be uploaded into the Federal Register as well. So what's the beauty about that is the Federal Register, you can go online right now and view all the comments, and you're going to be able to go online and view the summary of the meeting. And so transparency is what we're going for through this rulemaking process. Again, all these oral comments that we take tonight, Chief's going to be summarizing those, but I'd ask that you go ahead and put that in the Federal Register yourself, because you're going to say it better than we can summarize it here at this meeting. So if you haven't picked up a paper on how to submit a comment, please do so. And we want to hear from everything: cultural heritage, cultural significance. That's a big part of this rulemaking process. And I see we got Auntie in the back. Hopefully you can provide some information on that, and or anyone else who's lived here and goes out. You guys who are operating every single day, we want to hear from you. How can this be done safely? What is unsafe? Again, I've talked to a lot of you on the phone leading up to this, and there's some new people as well. So thank you for that. Any questions on the rule itself? We've got this is a proposed rule. Okay, so we're just proposing it. And again, the rule also states that people can request permission to enter that 300-meter safety zone as well. Okay, so it's not to prevent anyone and everyone, but if you haven't right now as the rule's proposed, if someone hasn't requested permission and received permission to enter, then that person is not allowed to go in there. Okay, so that's kind of the rule as we're proposing it. Sorry for the temperature in here too. It's super hot, but.
Is it identical to the temporary rule? Nothing's changed in wording?
The notice of proposed rulemaking and the temporary final rule, Coast Guard uses templates to craft those. The templates are slightly different. One of those is in the temporary final rule. There's no comment period, but the actual regulation itself is identical. So, yeah.
And thanks again. And if I could just underscore this, your feedback will make the decision. Nothing is set in stone, whether the 300-meter safety zone, whether that's permanent, we eliminate it, or we modify it.
We need to modify it.
And so, yeah, that's what we want to hear. Yeah.
You guys are working closely with the Volcanoes National Park on this too. So I mean, like, is the rule is basically for safety on the water, which is concerned, right?
That's all we have jurisdiction.
Okay. So then my question would be, I mean, like, have you guys thought about the ramifications about that? I mean, statistically speaking, what is it, like 1,000 to 1 the amount of deaths and injuries on land? So if by making a restriction, you're in a way going to be forcing more people who don't want to go pay money to go on a boat because it's too far away. Now they're going to hike, and that's going to increase the liability to the park, because all those people that would have been in the comfort and safety of a boat are now going to be going on the land through the park, whereas statistically we just shown there's more injuries there. So in essence, we're going to be creating more of a liability, right?
That's what the park wants.
Awesome comment, and I love this dial. I hadn't thought of it that way. Please put that in there. Make sure that gets in the Federal Register. Like this is the type of stuff we want to hear. Yep.
Let me give it to you from a photographer's standpoint. I've been photographing it for over 20 years. Basically, now with the land's gotten so far away, it's almost an impossible shot to go and get. And once again, it's for the rogue wave thing. It's the thing that happens very, very seldomly. Then, if you take away the boat, right now the boat, photographers coming from all over the world are coming to photograph the volcano. The safest way to photograph the volcano is on the boats. Gets them there close. They've got an opportunity to move. Shane's got 1,000 horsepower, 4 engines. He is as safe as can get to get out and away. Covered boat, so you can be protected from anything that's flying. You're going to take the safest way away. Well, what's going to happen is, historically, if you go across anything in photography, if I can't get the shot, they break the rules. So what you're going to wind up with is an influx of people that are going to go out there. They're going to be breaking the rules on land and getting closer. And as Damien here said, they're going to wind up putting them in an unsafe situation where it is statistically unsafe.
Sir, great comment, and I appreciate that. I will add, though, we did allow provisions for folks to enter into the safety zone if they met some safety guidelines and procedures. But great comment. Please include that in the Federal Register for us.
On that point, are those exceptions that you talked about, is that going to be part of the rule? In other words, that was after this temporary rule came into effect, as I understand it about
Entry into or remaining in the safety zone is prohibited unless authorized by the captain of the Port of Honolulu or his designated representative. So we included it from the start, and in the temporary rule, it was included from the start. So it was always the intention that people could request, and then so we put out guidance on how to make that request possible, and that was about a week after the rule. So it was always people have always been able to request, and as it's crafted right now, people can request permission to go into the safety zone.
And sir, we put criteria on what we would be looking at to offer exemptions to enter into the safety zone. If you have some different ideas or different criteria for us to assess, please include that, and we'll evaluate that, sir.
Seems like right now it's just kind of any permission under the rule as drafted is, as long as it's approved by the captain of the Port of Honolulu, it's just going to be left at that, and then the captain or the Hawaii Coast Guard will have their own criteria, like you just suggested. Is that the plan?
We're open for recommendations. If there's a recommendation that X, Y, and Z need to be provisions for allowing people to come into the safety zone, you guys are out there all the time, so we value that information. So if you've got some of that, definitely put it in there.
For instance, you're aware that VHS communication can't occur with the Coast Guard down there. It has to be through cell phone now. You're aware of that limitation?
Temporary provision, and then if somebody can radio in and get permission, do they have a limit as to how close they can get once they've gotten permission to, or, right?
Right.
Like once they enter this zone, are they allowed to?
And just so we're clear, it's not radioing. We're asking people to, we're sort of vetting those people. So we're asking a submit written safety plan. And we want to know a little more than just, hey, I'd like to go into the zone. We want to find out what redundant safety equipment they have, what's their experience operating in the area. But so we'll receive that information, evaluate it, and then take a look at it, and then provide a response back to them. But then, yeah, there is a minimum distance that the captain of the port has allowed for the temporary zone, and that's 50 meters.
And that was recently enacted, a minimum safe distance of 50 meters. And again, if that should be modified, eliminated, or changed, please give us suggestions. And if I could just underscore the criteria that we're looking at, if there's something that we have not looked at, please give us suggestions, or should we emphasize? We currently have them weighted about all equal, but if there's something that we should give more weight to or less weight to, please let us know, and we'll review that.
If you have to write a whole written report like that, wouldn't it have to be, I guess, the situation changes all the time because the volcano is constantly changing. You can't really, that's why they say you can't really predict what it's going to do. If you were actually asking permission to move closer, wouldn't it, or shouldn't it be based on assessing the situation on how it is that day? Because if you had to write out a whole paper, that's before you're going out. So wouldn't it be different depending on, okay, we're here, it looks like it's not really that explosive today, or it's a lot calmer today. To write out a whole report, that would have to be before you went out. So you wouldn't be able to see how it is that day, or if it's changing, or if it's more, I guess, aggressively throwing things, projecting things out.
If I understand it correctly, instead of setting a minimum, shouldn't it be assessed on a day-to-day basis depending on what the flow is doing and the weather conditions are?
Yes, because in order to write a report, you'd have to do it beforehand. You wouldn't be able to see that.
Yes, ma'am, and that's originally how we had, for those that we authorized entry into the safety zone, we left it upon their judgment based on the weather conditions, the plume, the lava flow, their best judgment on how close to get to the lava flow. but we received some additional information that made us decide to enact a minimum safe distance of 50 meters away. But man, we are open to, again, adjusting that, eliminating that, or expanding that. Just please give us that information and we'll review that.
And if I could add to that, that's exactly, you put it very well. If you could write that comment in, something like, hey, the dangers change from a day-to-day basis, in your opinion. Right now, 300 meters doesn't account for that. Recommend that it somehow accounts for people's ability to operate based on the danger associated with that day. Definitely put that in there. That's a great comment.
One of the operators gave me a really great example of, hey, depending on how far you paddle out is depending on how big the surf is that day. You don't paddle out to a certain point on a day-to-day basis. You look how big the surf is, what the tides are doing, the current, then you kind of decide how far you're going to paddle out or how close you're going to stay in. So I don't know who gave me that analogy, but that was a good one. But thank you, ma'am.
Our show of commitment acres have been pushed out. That 75 landslide that was fairly close to the ocean entry. Ocean entries come and go. You have a Kilauea shoreline, fastest migrating coastline in the world. Are we stepping up to the plate here, or are we just going to be like, I mean, this is a big issue, much more than just this small ocean entry in, as far as public safety goes. We're talking a very small picture. Is there a plan to step into the big picture from the Coast Guard?
Sir, I'm not sure if I understand your question.
Well, we had an ocean entry that when it shut off, it blew the hole out the center. It was the longest it flowed in one spot. So you have lava that goes down not deeper than 200 feet and turns to all the silt. So then the current comes along, undermines that, and so now you have that flow that was a little more than 6 years ago, probably undermined in the most unstable place on the coastline, especially because it's right next to the 75 landslide. So the ocean entry might not be the bad spot. And is there going to be more to address all these other situations, or are we just talking about a small little part of the picture?
Basically what he's talking about is the last flows we had. If we're going to do historical data, we shouldn't only be looking at what's happening right this second. We have a lot that we could be studying. The Waikupanaha flow is where I think he's talking about. There's a lot of stuff there to study. What is, and I know that was going to be one of my questions for the geology department over there. Are they actively still, assessing what happened at Waikupanaha? It was one of the biggest flows I've seen at the ocean entry. It shot things way up in the air at one point, but they didn't come out in the ocean very much. I remember one day we were there and we watched a Tefra jet and then a splatter cone, and we were sitting less than 50 feet for it. Things were flying inland, up well over 100 feet, but they weren't coming towards the boats at all. And so, I understand these projectiles went in the land and stuff drops, but my biggest question before she walked off, I wanted to know, you said the 300 yards was just the biggest of what you thought it would really need to be. What was your assessment actually? Was the 50 meters what you thought was a safe zone for the boats? Or what did you actually, after doing all this data, what is your idea of what should and shouldn't be?
Can I answer that? Yeah, no, we did not come up with 50 meters as an estimate for anything.
Okay.
The 300 meters, again, was based on our amalgamation of all the observational information we could compile going back to 86. We are not boat operators, we're not mariners, we don't spend time on the water, as you know. So it would really be imprudent of us to give any specific number that is considered a safe zone. But can I also answer the interesting point you raised about that whole coastline stability, which is I think what you're asking, and it is a really interesting scientific question. John in the park has raised this as well. That whole south coast, even in the area to the west that hasn't been affected by Pu'uo'o lavas, nobody has done any kind of stability evaluation of that entire coastline, and that would be an excellent thing to do. I'm not aware of anyone working on that.
You know, my comment, instead of trying to enforce a regulation that would be very tough, is let's go figure out what the map equation is going to be for the coastline. And yeah, I think that's the best spent government money in this situation.
I think also a point that, like, you know, down towards Jalapé, there's not nearly as many people that are there day by day. And the amount of people that are coming to the lava ocean entry, mostly by land, really, are, I think, what is the point of making this thing is we need to protect the amount of people that are there. There's not that much people. It's a mostly uninhabited coastline down that way, so maybe there's not so much pressure to look into that at this time in comparison to the amount of foot traffic there is near the lava ocean entry.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
yes, Scott, just so I make sure I understand. So just the whole coastline, you're saying there's some dangers associated with that, and that the Coast Guard should look into putting a safety zone around the whole coastline, or?
You was on that boat, yeah?
Yeah.
The radio,
Mhm.
radio into you got contact with you.
Yeah.
What do you think?
About, I thought you guys were operating in a safe manner, yeah. Uh-huh.
Do you think we can go closer?
I'd be looking for your opinion. That was the first time I'd ever been out there.
Yeah, I know.
And so I'd be interested.
Because for us, we're not the one that's issued a law.
Yeah.
You guys are. So since, and I went on the radio and I asked the captain of the Kiska, what you guys think? Is when because we were far off. I mean, 50, 60 yards, 70 yards. And you know, so that's why I was asking the captain of the boat, what do you think? Like, is it safe for us to go in closer, or because the boat was there for like 3-4 days? 2 days. 2 days. Yeah.
So I'll tell you, there was we had the Kittiwake and the Kiska. I'll tell you, some of the captain recently was on the Kittiwake. Captain didn't feel getting any closer, and there were some on the boat that felt they could get closer.
So it's all up to your opinion.
So the captain of the Kittiwake was like, I don't feel getting any closer than this minimum safe distance, but there were some on the boat that felt that they could get closer.
Did you get an opportunity to go in the Zodiac?
I wasn't there in the small boat. Yeah, I know they did send it out the next day.
I mean, I observed one day they got the Zodiac pretty close.
Mm-hmm. I did talk to the person who was it.
Got some
Captain.
great pictures of it.
Yeah. So he said he got. So this was the executive petty officer of the vessel, second in command on that boat. He was the one driving the Zodiac. I said, hey Chief, what'd you think? He said, 50 meters, that was plenty close for me. I wouldn't want to get any closer than that. And that was a quote from him. Again, that was his first time out there operating near the lava. And he was like, and it was a pretty mild day, if I remember correctly.
It was a good day. I was just curious what they that was my question to the boat. The same thing. Like, what do you guys think?
He said 50 meters was plenty close, and he wouldn't be comfortable going any closer than that. And when I talked to, when I was on board on the Kittiwake, the captain was like at 75 meters with his boat, he was like, I'm not going any closer. Yeah. But again, you guys are out there every day, and so
It happens to us. We have guests that come from, I mean, I got a guest that came out of the Midwest that hasn't been out of their house in ever. They got a Hawaii trip given to them. They end up on a boat. We try to tell them, the facts before we go do something like this. But you're going to have one guy that's like these guys that are pro photographers, been on every boat ride in the world, whatever. And then you're going to have somebody that's, I'm sure the same thing on the boat. I bet you there was people on your boat that one guy was like, we need to get closer, and there's other guys like, hey, this is good. So it's just interesting to hear what, you guys are boatsmen, so it'd be interesting to hear what the captain and the other crew thought. I mean, to me, going out on a Zodiac raft next to the volcano, that's pretty interesting. I mean, you want to talk about as dangerous as you can get. You're in an inflatable boat next to the lava. Now, I had a competitor that did it for years, even till his boat was popped, he was running out there, right?
Those are rigid and inflatable.
But still, it's an interesting concept to see a small boat of that nature inflatable going next to the volcano and comparing it next to our catamarans that all of us are around there. So there's, I would hope that he'd said that, that the conditions permitted to get much closer than that, because the day was a good day for it, I would think. So, I mean, we were all interested in hearing what your guys' feedback would be. I didn't know if you're just there hanging out or if you guys were doing assessments.
That's why I was when we're gone, should take some, data of your guys, for yourself to regulate the rule, because that day was it's like a normal day. That was a normal day. There was the Latour explosion was probably 15 feet high. It'd be like 10 feet out into the ocean.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a normal day. That's for us. So that's what I was asking on the radio. You know, did you guys get any data? Any data when we weren't there or anything?
First of all, can we figure out a way to figure out how close the boats are? So we're using radar. We had the lava delta up on the radar. How far are we, and where are the little blips? So that's how we were measuring how close people were getting, and then collecting the data. Like I said, he was 75 yards, and
I thought we were 50 meters away, and just by judging it.
From the radar, you guys were about 70. You guys were actually given a buffer. You were about 75 yards or so.
Yeah, so we're kind of playing it safe.
Yeah.
That day I bought a rangefinder, and I did on 50 meters. Oh, to me, I was like 150 meters that day because it was playing it safe. But as like I was saying, in that little point in time, did you guys collect any data of the ocean entry? Just for your guys' sake, as far as doing the regulations.
We were there for 2 days, small sample. You guys are there every single day.
Yeah.
I want your data because that's going to help us make. I feel safe at such and such a distance.
So for me to obtain, take data down for this, it's hard. You know what I mean? So that's why I was like, on a second party, should somebody, if somebody else wanted to, Coast Guard or if USGS wants to buy a boat and go out there and take data every day, then that's
some useful information that they can provide, and I know firsthand because I've been there too several times, but is, the people that are right at the cliff with babies in their arms, like almost every day, they witness people in the unsafe zone up on the cliffs. And that needs to be reported because that's so dangerous, those people could die. And if they follow up with the enforcement, probably less people will do it, probably, but lives could be saved.
Okay. If all this gets going, who is going to go down there and enforce it? You guys make all these rules, but then when it comes time to enforce, nobody's around. Tell me, can you tell me who's going to enforce it?
The safety zone, that will be the Coast Guard to enforce that. And there's a variety of methods that we could use to enforce that. Surface, air, and even other methods I can't really disclose.
You guys going to be able to tell that one boat is in there that by all this nothing be got? You're going to be able to tell, oh, there's somebody illegal in there.
Yes, sir. And obviously we don't have a 24/7 presence there. But I encourage you, sir, if there's questions about how the Coast Guard's going to enforce it, what methodology we should use, please give that to our comments. Sir.
It seems like people have been going down there, especially in boats, for more than 10 years. Normally when there's a government agency that makes some type of change, like for example, you have all these injuries at the Haiku Stairs. Okay, now they want to do something because it's a serious issue. You got this intersection in Pahoa, there's all these accidents. Okay, well let's make a roundabout. So was there any specific incident that showed that there was any reason to regulate past what was already happening and being allowed?
There's your statistics right there.
Was there any specific incidents that occurred to make us put this temporary 300-meter safety zone? Not one specific incident, but there was a series of information that we were made aware of. Illegal charter operations, unsafe practices, complaints about unsafe practices that were people doing on the water. So we made that decision to put the 300-meter temporary safety zone in place, and it wasn't arbitrary. We got information, we relied on USGS, and again, it's just temporary, and we'll make the decision whether to make that permanent, modify it, or eliminate that. And again, your feedback and information will help us make that decision, sir.
Yeah, thank you.
I can tell you from being a photographer on land and on the water, when you guys started that 300-meter safety zone, when it first went and the boats weren't going in there, the number of people in the legal boundary beyond quadrupled. I can, you want statistics, you want numbers, you want things, I can send you photos for months of just people standing right above that fire hose. And as soon as that 300-yard thing went in, that number of people quadrupled. Way up.
Great comment. And so if you got, there's a way to put pictures into the Federal Register. Please put them in there and associate it with that very comment.
So, you know, since this is a safety meeting, you know where the most unsafe place will be? At the harbor.
That's right.
That's the most unsafe place. We get 40 kids swimming around a boat.
That's right.
Somebody gonna die there before at the ocean entry. That's for sure. That's the biggest problem. Every Saturday, Sunday, I gotta hire guys for lunches. That's how serious it is, so I can get out of the way so fast. And if these kids, if we say anything to the kids, you know the parents, they like fight us. Which I don't care, I fight them. You know what I mean? That's the problem that we have every single day. Swimmers at the ramp. And that's part of that. I'm sure that's part of Coast Guard too, right? Because it's passenger boat in ocean, right? So I mean that's the #1 thing that we've been fighting for so long. But then this 300-meter regulation came up. It came up before the problem of getting out to the lava.
Great comment. I think, sir, you showed me a picture of the boat ramp, and it looks like the wild, wild west out there. You got snorkelers, you got surfers.
It's not funny, it's not funny at all.
And then another thing about it.
When I'm back in the trailer down, I can run somebody over and kill them.
Yes, sir.
Yeah?
Yes, sir.
That's not funny about it.
No, I didn't say it was funny, sir.
But it is a big problem for us.
They showed us the most dangerous part when they're doing these these lava tours.
It is
launching their.
It's getting worse because there's more people moving to the island. Getting worse. It's not going to get better.
Realistically,
I mean, and you guys worried about how close the boat's going to be to the lava? You guys are going backwards. That's why I ask you, who will monitor?
If I could just remind everyone that this is a public meeting to discuss a specific, so not that your concerns about the boat ramp are not relevant. I've been down there, I've seen it, but that's not the purpose of this public meeting. So let's please, to keep this meeting going, let's keep our comments on point. Sir.
I've spent hundreds of hours on the cliffs there, watching the boats go back and forth. And the permitted boats, the 4 permitted boats, I've always watched them operate in a professional manner. And you can see, depending on what's going on, they make decisions and figure out what's going on before they are making their move around there. But I've seen some unpermitted boats, not lately, but in the past. And those are the ones like dropping people off in the water with surfboards for photo opportunities for the television and things like that. But I noticed that the 4 permitted boats seem to always, they seem like they're operating in a professional manner.
If you guys do that, huh? Like you said, you guys have information. Let somebody on the cliff with high-power cameras. You guys don't worry, that's why. Yeah. It's our business. It's how we make a living.
Yes, sir. You have guys that have been operating out of here for years. They know what they're doing. And going back to how comfortable did you guys feel close? So you guys are on a boat. Nobody's got any experience with the lava. Nobody's got anything like that. How comfortable are you going to feel? If you were in a race car and you were just allowed to go and drive it, would you feel comfortable? Going 200 miles an hour around the track? Probably not. But who here would not pay for a lap around the track with a professional race car driver to put you on the edge? To him, he's probably throttled it back. He's nowhere near what he does in a race. These guys, when they're operating on their own, when they don't have passengers on the boat, back in the day, so much closer, so many things. But as soon as you've got lives in your hands, you throttle it back. And they take that into consideration before they do anything. So they have lives under their care. They make sure that they're not going to, but they bring them to the edge. They bring them where they're going to feel exhilarated, and that's what keeps them coming back.
You guys have the most to risk. I mean, you're the one out there on the water, And ultimately, you guys are the people who are in the vessels who are out there are responsible for the safety of those lives that are on board. And we want to make sure that if we do allow people to enter into the safety zone, that they can do it safely. And that's one of the reasons why we wanted to weight the experience of the people who are requesting. So, great comment.
My understanding is he's against regulation. This is definitely affecting how people get a view of a volcano that attracts the population of the world. Has that been addressed?
So I understand correctly, you're saying that the president has put some comments about making the federal government making regulations, correct?
Right.
Okay, and so that is one of the questions that it's more of a legal question, and so we did have to vet this through our legal department, and they did answer that question and said that this was legally sufficient to put forth this regulation.
Economics. I don't know the exact statistics, but I can tell you, I bet you 90% of the people that come to the Big Island, whether it's a neighbor island visit, whether it's from the mainland or all around the world, come here for the volcano. Now, if the national park shut their doors and said you couldn't go out to the crater anymore, and said you couldn't go to the ocean edge, and we shut all the boats down, I would almost guarantee we're belly up. We're all farming, or we're all figuring something else out. So I know there's a lot of people here or that aren't here today that are affected by this decision. And I would pose the question, if I went around this room right here and ask how many people that think that the safety of this, even by a show of hands we could do it, that think this rule should be in place. Because basically you're saying this governing body right here is the people making this decision. I know, is there any other meetings that are going to be held for this? Besides the chime in on the internet?
So Shane, this is not the, no decisions are going to be made right now, so we're not going to walk out of this meeting
but this is pretty much your public meetings. This is the only one, right?
This is the public meeting, and then the comments on the Federal Register.
But basically, I see this as a world thing, not just a Hilo thing. Because people, I mean, when this change occurred, and all these other operators can say, I can tell you my business alone has cut to a third of what it was prior to that. I have all the statistics there. I can go to all the businesses in town and ask them the same questions. But, you know, a lot of them, we had this little thing at the bottom of an MSB 2 months ago, and now all of a sudden, these are the people that actually made it here. I know there's a lot more people that are affected that aren't able to chime in, and I guess they can get in still that way. But if I went around this particular setting here, the people that showed up for this, I don't think they're here to say that we should have these rules. But I could be wrong. I mean, I just think that this is a much bigger thing than just us here today. So I hope that you guys are going to do away with this. I don't think that it should be enacted. And I don't even think that the regulation is I know you guys could enforce it however you want, but are we into criminalization of an attraction of the world? Why people come to Hawaii, or are we going to promote this idea because this is what this island is? It's a volcano, you know, and that's why we get to do what we do. People want to come see this.
People have to go to Vanuatu where they allow you to get lowered down into the volcano. Free country.
And I want to assure you, I share that concern, and what I want to do is make a decision that maximizes public safety, that right balance between public safety and facilitating commerce.
Earlier you cited that one of the main reasons that this zone was put into effect was because a lot of the unpermitted vessels and that people were, you know, practicing unsafely down there. But I think considering the permission that we've had to get and the safety precautions we've had to go through, I think that that is a good measure. And I think ultimately your goal is being met. You're keeping out the riffraff that's not taking this seriously, but the people whose livelihood it depends on, the people who, you know, are concerned with economics, and the people that really want to be there are still able to do it. So my main concern is with the change from this being a temporary safety zone to a permanent safety zone, are we still going to be able to operate within it? And are these parameters going to be continually changing? Because as Shane mentioned, this is our business, you know? We can't be going over these ups and downs every time somebody says that, oh, maybe a rock could fly this far, so we're going to change it again, because every time one of these things gets posted, it hits our business really hard. And some of us are more established than others, but for Some of us, we're small family-owned businesses and we can't afford to take those kinds of hits, especially in a community where we don't have a lot of opportunity for entrepreneurship. This is huge for us and it's important for us. So if this becomes a permanent regulation and it's 300 meters, that's fine. For every Dick and Harry that doesn't know what they're doing and wants to get a look at the lava, yeah, maybe that's how far you should stay. But for people who've been there for over 10 years every day, who have lived in those waters, who have generational knowledge passed down from their ancestors, these are not lackeys that are just in there for the money. They're sharing a piece of what they know and what they're passionate about. And like you said, they're not going to sink their business by practicing on safety. So my main concern is once this becomes a permanent regulation, will we still be able to obtain permission to operate within it? And are the parameters going to be set at 50 yards? If that's what that is, then that's fine and we can abide by it. But we need to have something set that works for everyone. And I think that what you're shooting for is admirable. I think it's going to work so long as we get it into place. And that's my main concern.
If this 300-meter safety zone becomes permanent, again, I just want to make sure I'm clear, you want to have assurances or knowledge that will operators be allowed to operate within that as long as they meet certain safety criteria? And I would say yes, ma'am. Please include those comments. There's provisions made in the regulation where they can have access to it as long as they meet certain safety criteria, which we have had posted. But we want to put, again, is there something else we should be considering for operators or other folks that want to have entry into the zone? Or maybe should we emphasize one more than the other? That's where we need your input. But yes, ma'am, if it becomes permanent, and again, nothing has been decided now whether it's going to be permanent, eliminated, or modified. But if it is permanent, there are provisions where people can get access into the zone and operate as long as they meet certain safety criteria.
I personally have a lot of colleagues that are in the industry, and I think the socioeconomic ramifications of even the temporary ban have been huge, and the proof is in the cake. I know concierges that work on hotels on the Kona side at the Four Seasons. I personally help manage various vacation rentals. I have colleagues that are tour guides, restaurants, the hotel business. I mean, since you guys have done this temporary thing, right? And I understand it's because of safety, but we have no preceding information or no preceding facts to do so. So it's really more of I don't want to say paranoia, but it's almost like a preemptive move here because there's no fact to back it up. And really, you know, since you guys have done this, you look around, I think Shane said something like a third the amount of people. You guys go into Pahoa on a day when these lava boats are running, okay? That town's booming. The days these guys aren't running, it's a ghost town. I mean, you guys have, I've seen it. I've seen it with the vacation rentals. I've seen it with the concierges booking tours. I've seen it with the tour guides. I've seen it in the restaurants. I've seen it at the surf shop. I mean, if we were to go to Africa and tell people, you can't go see the lions, word gets around the world. And within 48 hours of a new eruption happening, the world is here on the Big Island. Something happens to Halemaumau, boom, flights are booked. Within 24, 48, 72 hours, the world is here. Geologists, photographers, enthusiasts, adventurous, hikers, right? And even just what you guys have done with this temporary ban has already had a huge impact on the local economy. And I mean, it's very visible. It's not a what if. It's so visible. You go around, you talk to these business owners and stuff, and it has a huge impact. And you know, word gets around. And you look at social media and you look at these travel pages and people are talking, oh, and you look at people, that's the word on the street right now. People are saying, oh, the lava tours are done, we're not going, it's too far. And that just doesn't affect these guys. That affects everybody. That affects the hotels, the concierges, the whole island. And I think that that's something to consider too, because like I said, you know, if we start spreading the word that people can't go see lions in Africa, people are going to stop going to Africa. If we tell people they can't go to the North Face on Mount Everest, they're going to stop going to Mount Everest. And here we have one of the only active volcanoes in the world that you can come and hike to. You know, I think that there's more in sight here than just the safety. You know, and if we had some preceding information or some preceding accidents to say, hey, in the last 30 days or the last 90 days, this many injuries happened and this many people's lives were endangered, but we don't have any of that. So really, we're making a paranoid decision that, you know, may or may not have an outcome on some of the safety, but first and foremost, what it is affecting is the economy. And the Big Island specifically, People only come here to come see the lava. And the word out in the community, in the world, is that that's not a good time. There's people around the world saying, no, 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 don't go to the Big Island right now. You can't really go see the lava.
And it's the best time.
Yeah.
It's the best you're going to ever see an eruption right now. And it may not be in the ocean for long. We could all be looking for work tomorrow. One of these bench collapses could stop and, oh, okay, I'm back to waterfall tours or chasing whales, which I can do from 100 yards. You know, here's an endangered species. We can get right next to it. We can go jump in with dolphins, like run up on them, throw people out of the boat on top of them. And you guys are allowing this with 50, 60 boats in Kona. We're 4 boats going out to see something that we have no effect of. So, I mean, it is a special thing that we get to do, and I hope we can work something out that works for everybody, but I hate to see the fear-based thing, and I think that's what a lot of these guys are talking about.
On the fear-based thing, I want to bring, this is a USGS document right here, they're on paper. I want you to see the black and white photo on the back that shows people standing right next to an overflowing lava lake. No one died. They're still alive.
That was 1924.
1924.
They were a lot safer.
They must have been much safer back then, and they're Sunday's best, as you can see some of the people in here. Regulations are piling up on top of regulations on top of regulations. This regulation right here seems to be absolute worst case scenario. What's the absolute worst that could happen in a 100-year time frame? Oh, a rock could go flying 300 yards. Worst case scenario, one thing, one rogue wave, one moment. Are we really going to regulate things to the worst case scenario? That is just, it's crazy to me. We get in cars, we drive every day. As I said, I've been photographing it for 20 years. The most dangerous part of my day is the drive out. I will not lie to you. I've fallen into a lava tube. I've broken through the surface, fallen 20 feet, shattered an ankle. I've had one incident where I got severely hurt out at the volcano. No lava in it, no any of that kind of stuff. I have almost been in 4 car accidents in my years traveling back and forth. I've been off the road a few times. That was the most dangerous part of my trip. Being out at the volcano, yes, there are things that can happen, and unfortunately it says volcano. And everybody loves that, you know, it's all hyped up, it's all dramatized, it's everything like that. They want to go with the furthest drama of what it is. I'll also let you know I'm the guy who swims with it. I'm the guy who, back since 2005, had been swimming with it, taking lava wave photos. I've been very close. I've been in the areas that are extremely dangerous. I'm still here.
Feed off of also what he was saying, we do have a lot of people who are in it for the thrill, but everybody that comes on board one of our vessels not only signs a liability waiver, but they also know the risks they're undertaking. It's just like skydiving. Yeah, you're going to jump out of a plane, 50% chance says your chute might not open. You're not even the one that packed the chute, how do you know? But you sign a risk waiver saying you understand the dangers and you still want to go through with it. And that's what the customers that we have are provided with. We tell them what the dangers are. Everyone knows that the lava is incredibly unpredictable, and no one could say, even based on, you know, our geologists here who understand what's going on, even they can't say when something's going to happen or it's not going to happen. So as much as it's not necessarily in our control, it's not in your control either. And I understand that you guys are trying to take measures to keep everyone safe, but also know that it is up to each person the risks that they want to undertake.
Yeah. Also, we're you know, between the 4 boats, we are there, you know, pretty much on an hourly basis. We are constantly seeing what's going on. By the time we get there, you know, we're assessing the whole situation before we even get there. We see the cracks. We're noticing the cracks opening up daily. Every trip we get down there, you know, whatever it is, we are always assessing it. You know, like just saying about the smoke. You know, we're not going to go down the middle of the smoke to go watch the lava be, you know, going in. We're not going to go downwind of it. You're not going to be able to see it. You know, we're going to stay upwind of it. You know, all this, you know, this things. You know, we've been doing it for so long. We kind of know what we're, you know, we have an idea what we're going to be doing by the time we get there. You know, so.
I think that he's being humble, and what he's trying to say is that since he's there every day, he might have a better opinion of what's going on than somebody like yourself who, like you said, you were there for 2 days. You don't want to say that you are gonna state that this was our data because it was such a short window, you know, and there's something to be spoken for. Maybe he doesn't have a degree in geology, but he is there every day and seeing the differences and making those decisions.
And if I came across, like, I don't want to share the data. I don't have, I mean, I was there for 2 days. I wasn't collecting. You guys know, and I trust you guys a lot. Your opinion, I value your opinion a lot more than I would value my opinion. I don't want to be the one who makes that decision on what I feel. I want to take.
Sitting there for 2 days. I don't know anybody in this room that sat there for 2 days, me included. To be able to sit there and watch it happen over a whole day's period, that's a lot of assessment. I mean, that's a pretty good notion of, hey, I sat there for a day, and you know what? Did you feel safer as you sat there? Or did you feel more at home the longer you were there? Or did you get more worried as you were there? I mean, that would be my question, is because, you know, yes, being there as much as we are, we've gotten more comfortable there. We've watched things happen. And I would say probably the same for anybody that was on your boat as they got there. And some of them probably wanted to see it a little closer by the time they got out. They're like, well, take it, Captain, hey, you think we cruise in just a little closer maybe? Because I want to get a better look. And I'd almost guarantee some of the guys on it. But I think sitting there for 2 days straight, that's an awful long time to sit and watch it and be able to make an opinion. You know, I think the longest I ever sat there was like 3 hours one time. So 2 days, that's a long sit. I think you got as much data as a lot of people that have ever done it.
We didn't just sit there for 2 days. Yeah, I wasn't there for 20 or 48. I wasn't there for 48 hours straight. Yeah, yeah. Actually, I got transported back to Hilo after the morning, but.
Whatever you need me to say, I'll come to the base.
No. Transparency.
There you go.
And Shane, I'll add, so the operators that all met with me and Mr. Jarboe it was about a month ago. And I told you there's been a lot of things I'm accused of, but not being unreasonable, correct? And I thought after our meeting, wasn't it a reasonable outcome?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yes.
Could have been worse.
So I want to assure you, we're going to take your input, and we will make a reasonable decision.
You know, working at the ocean entries for the park, one time the cruise ship came in very close, and those people got a wonderful view of the volcano. If you implement a regulation, it might inhibit people like that got a really wonderful experience with ever getting. This is a very special event out of a volcano, and I definitely think viewing openly is so essential to getting the job done.
Yeah, just to clarify, you know, the 4 boat permittees, they are safe. So that's all I gotta say. Off the bottom of the line, everybody operates safe. As far as illegal guys, that's not my jurisdiction.
What about the fishermen? What's going to happen with them? Are they going to be able to do that now? Are you guys going to be putting in this thing here? Or what? Are they going to have the same regulations that these guys got to go through?
Make sure I understand. The fishermen, like
they drove past us, that Ono Lane is right there.
They drove right past there. Yeah. I think I saw. I mean, when I was out there, we did see two guys roll through, kind of getting ready. Okay, are they illegals? We were all getting all excited, you know, and then they just trolled right through. They were more than they were outside the safety zone. They were outside 300 meters, so we didn't do anything. We were kind of prepared to do something, but again, the way the regulation is currently written, any member of the public can request to enter the safety zone. And right now, the process that we have in place is anyone who requests, we evaluate them against the criteria that we provided on our website. And then if someone if we don't feel that they can operate safely, like say someone says, hey, I'm from Kansas, I want to take a kayak out there, I've never been to Hawaii, I see I can request permission, we're probably not going to allow that person to go in. We'll say there's other ways to view the lava, but that's not an acceptable way to view the lava. As the regulation is currently written right now, that's how we would process that. Again, like the captain has said, we're not in a final state. This regulation may not even go into place, and anyone may be able to. So to talk hypothetical, it's kind of hard. But like a fisherman, if there is a fisherman who's been operating and they've got redundant safety equipment, and we feel that they can operate safely, and they say, hey, I just want to troll through there and do what I've always done, my family's done forever. We will then take a look at that and evaluate them and whether or not we feel that they can safely do so. Yeah.
In 1 month, you're gone.
Yes.
So who are we gonna do it after? We gotta go through this again. Because we're talking all of our, all of our info or whatever we're giving you. Are you gonna transmit it to the next guy or?
June 2nd, the comment period closes, and my goal is to provide a recommendation to the captain of the port, and before I leave, at least have this. Well, the captain makes the decision.
I'll still be here.
Yeah. Again, that's why I wanted to go out on the boat. That's why I want to hear from you all. I'm the one who's responsible for writing the regulation. Based on all the comments, I'm the one who needs to address those comments and then provide a recommendation to the captain of the port on what the rule should look like. And then my goal is to do that before July 15th when I depart to Connecticut.
Because you're a good guy,
Oh, thanks, Kaika. Appreciate it.
And I guess on that question, are you here for 4 years, or how many? Is it an indefinite term, or
Change the 3-year tour.
3 years, 300 yards? I got a guy that wants to be at 30 feet, and so yeah, the transparency, is very important. I mean, my ads are dated now. Like I got all these ads out there in the world, and we're showing a boat next to the lava, and everybody's asking me, well, you're lying to us. I'm like, well, I don't answer every phone call. I got an office for that, so we're having to field that, and if it continues, we can advertise to the product. We got to keep the product kind of steady. So that's one of the toughest things I'm finding, because being one of the bigger operators, yeah, I've heavily advertised into this market and been built into it. Now I'm sitting here eating advertising and eating all these calls that are people yelling at me all the time that I can't do something for them now. But photographers like this guy, like, I got these people and I want to come show them this. And, it's a hard apple to bite when you have a small limited season.
If I understand you correctly, just want to make sure you're saying I'm advertising a certain distance. My pictures are showing a certain distance. We've gone to allowing us to operate at wherever we feel comfortable. Then now we're back to 50 meters. What I would like to see from you in your comment is, this is exactly how I would like to see this regulation.
It's taken me since we talked.
Yeah. And this is how I would like to see. Maybe it's do away with the regulation. It doesn't make sense. It's not safe. If that's your comment, great. I liked your comment about. I feel that I can safely operate based on and I make a risk-based decision based on the on-scene conditions that I see that day, and that goes back to sort of your comment in the middle. Things change, and so if you've got a comment that I want to be able to make a risk-based decision, I have liability forms, my people sign those liability forms, but I'm in agreement with the 300 meters because it is safe for other people who may not have that experience. If that's your comment, great, let us know that. If the comment is, this is terrible, do away with it, I want to hear it from everyone.
Talking when you first started about the Hawaiian heritage aspect of all of this. I haven't heard anything on that, and I'll tell you, one of the most beautiful moments I've ever witnessed out on the boat was actually with Captain Shane during Merry Monarch, and he had a boatload of hula halau that had come all the way over here from Oahu, and they were singing and chanting, and it was one of the most beautiful things I've ever witnessed in my life. I actually put my camera down, said screw the photos, and took my phone out and just recorded it. It was incredible. So are we going to stop that? Great point.
I got goosebumps when you started saying that. I'm hoping that we can get cultural significance comments and how this rule impacts from a cultural significance aspect as well. So I definitely want to hear from that, Captain.
And let me underscore that, please. That's very important. That carries a significant amount of weight in the decision making, the cultural aspect. So I implore you, please add those comments, please. Thank you for that.
And if you've got comments right now that speak to the cultural significance, I see some people raising their hands. I'd like to hear that.
Significance. There's the law that, you know, we are an illegally occupied nation.
Thank you.
Thank you, Andy.
Becca.
Our name, Kalapana Cultural Tours.
That's right.
That place is called Kailiili. It's not Kamakun. Kailiili was a place where the Hawaiians used, where my family, that whole land right there, that's for my family. That's where our family would land, first landed. And it's the Ford, no? My family lived right across, that's where our property is, right across his property, but our family used to own all that until the national park had taken that in 1928. Half a cent an acre or condemned. We had no choice to give up our property. So as far as cultural, that's what we provide for people that come on our boat. There's a cultural significance. So when we go down there, we talk about everything down there. Wahaula, first sacrificial hill ever built on Hawaii. The ocean, Namako Kahai, Pele, how the two sisters meet each other, why they fight each other. And all these stories, all these Hawaiian stories, we combine them and do a geological side and how the Hawaiians put these entities and how they seen it from back in the 1600s. That's how they documented the lava flows and everything, how Pele and Namakokai fight, because that's how they seen it back then. So it's pretty much like, so that's how we conduct our tour, is culturally. Coming from that Aina, that's my home. So I like bringing people there, and people don't understand what get under the lava flow, what had before. So we talk from all the way from our home, Kaimu, all the way down, Kapupahua, Kapau, then Kaili. So as for me, is a cultural thing, and that's what we provide for. As far as the geological side, they can go with Shane, because Shane, the geologist person on his boat, Sky over here, but we provide a cultural side. So, and this is the only, some people, like for us, we provide everything from hiking, biking, bike rentals. Some people, they cannot do the hike. So we want to share what Kalapana is all about. And the only way to see the lava is on the boat. And they feel Pele's presence. And that's where we come in, especially Kainoa, my cousin Kainoa, he's from Kalapana too. So that's what we try to provide is culturally. And with 300 meters, I cannot.
You don't feel the presence?
No.
Yeah.
Thank you. Very powerful. Thank you.